Hello world, David Brown here. I hope you're all doing well. I am the creator of Atlas Comply, a regulatory platform designed to help HR professionals and other safety and compliance minded folks to manage all of the regulatory complexity that comes with the ever-changing landscape of state and federal laws. For today's presentation, I'm going to focus and discuss the challenges of drafting compliant policies with today's technology and manual processes. Ultimately, we're going to go from manual to automated, and this presentation is a preface to a demonstration that I'll be doing tomorrow. So just to kick it off here today, the presentation is all about modernizing policy creation. And we're going to go ahead and get into it. So when you zoom out and you kind of look at the overall picture and process of creating a policy, for most organizations, especially on the SMB side of the market, it's usually a monolithic and manual process. Processes might be, created from scratch, copy and pasted. Maybe there's some type of template that's found online, or from another colleague. Oftentimes, these policies that are created from scratch or handed over, aren't exactly a perfect fit. There's usually modifications required, and in that, you also introduce risk. But besides that, these policies can have monolithic structures. You can have pages and pages and pages of content that might have conditionality, requirements. It even may, need very specific inputs in order for you to calculate or write that policy in a compliant way. And oftentimes there's a lack of standardization as well. And if you're a multi-jurisdictional operator and your business, needs policies for multiple states and different use cases, it's very hard to come up with consistent language formatting and structures that reduces complexity and errors. As a result of, the kind of structure in this, monolith and manual process, usually you end up with siloed expertise. The individual who decided to put on the superhero cape and, rolled up their sleeves and decided, hey, we're going to figure this out. I'm going to invest the human capital and brain power to solve this problem. Not everyone likes to, swim and absorb legal detail and policy information. So with that, you also arrive at a time-consuming process, whether it be creating that policy initially or even updating it. There's a lot of consideration around updating, which policy needs to be updated, which clauses need to be updated, what does that new clause need to look like? How do we ensure it's compliant? Who's going to review it? There's just a lot of steps in there. And when you think about this monolithic manual approach, what it really does is limit your scalability and your efficiency, just because it's so hard to manage. So to kind of sum that up from a manual workflow perspective at a high level, step by step, if you need to create a policy or update a policy, it's usually beginning with a master template hunt. You're trying to find out, hey, where did I save that file? Or what system does it live in? Or, who last touched it and who has access to it? Who knows where it is now? Once you get that template, now there's a human-powered pruning process where someone's making manual judgment calls, doing the best they can to update that policy in a compliant way. Additionally, if the update or new policy requires data injection, maybe specific information about your organization, citations from regulation or statutes or other different laws or policies within your organization, that entire process of finding it and replacing it is all manual. And then lastly, what this really means is ad hoc finalization. You might create a policy once and make it specific to a certain use case or a particular jurisdiction, without the ability to kind of reuse that in an architecture that is modular, dynamic, scalable, and automated. So with that being said, that's kind of the high level workflow, but the Deficiencies actually go deeper than that. So in the next 4 slides or so, we're going to dive a little bit deeper to understand that better. So just kind of double tapping on the monolith problem, because there is no modular architecture, templates can become overwhelming and they can expand with each new regulation. Operators must carve policies from large text blocks, increasing mental effort. All of this increases the delivery time as well as introduces the risk. Maybe you accidentally delete a crucial clause or don't include a crucial clause, just accidentally over oversight. All of these scenarios can surface when you're working with monolithic documents. There's also the human logic element. Many of the policies might have conditionality. This means that, certain conditions that exist within your business or working environment might dictate or require very specific sections, clauses, or information within your policy. And if you're not familiar with the rules and you don't understand that logic, your policy will not be compliant. Because of that complexity, it also introduces the opportunity for errors. You might accidentally include a clause or exclude a clause. And all of this means very low scalability because a human actually has to invest that cognition to understand that logic, the laws, the requirements, and then be able to apply them to the policy development and end up with a final product that is compliant and going to protect the business, your customers, and the public. When it comes to updating and managing the policy, find and replace is a huge vulnerability. I don't know about you, but working in business for 20 years, so many times I've seen, placeholders, previous client names, or, context that has nothing to do with me and my use case. And that really goes to represent the manual process. There's no tokenization coming from a modular automated type of platform that, knows when this information is supposed to be used, which can compromise the integrity of the document and lead to legal ramifications. For example, if you were to be using a DOT policy that didn't have your client name, the reasons for testing, who your designated employer representative is, and you just had placeholder brackets, that is going to cost you. Which brings us to the auditing and versioning black hole. Because most policy generation is a manual process that's, a hybrid offline, online type of workflow where this information isn't centralized, living in the cloud, as a single source of truth. You really have a problem when it comes to audit trails. You can't really speak to reliably, how it was made, who influenced those decisions, how were those decisions made. It also doesn't come with a discovery transcript. You wouldn't really be able to explain, how you created that policy and the drivers behind the decisions that you made. This can also lead to potential for overriding, changing, or deleting final policies, which could lead to massive liability for your organization. And in the event that you have a lack of a proper audit trail, as well as access controls, in the event that your policy or conduct of your business or operations were ever challenged legally, you may not be able to defend your decisions and to explain, why your policy is the way it is. So as we zoom out here and we kind of think about all of the challenges and risks of, manual policy creation, it's often viewed as a straightforward word processing task. However, that really kind of simplifies the complex nature and data-driven elements, plus the compliance elements of having a policy in the first place. It isn't meant just to be a piece of paper. It's meant to protect your business, your employees, and the public. All of those inefficiencies in that manual monolithic process really act as a bottleneck to preventing you from scaling and efficiently managing and distributing those policies within the organization. It also makes managing them really tricky. In addition to that, the manual monolith increases compliance risks. significantly increasing the potential for errors, omissions, challenges in tracking, and the inability to dynamically adapt policies as regulations and statutes and laws change on demand or frequently. So when it comes to Atlas Comply, I spent a lot of time kind of thinking through an architecture and a way that would allow me to create a kind of automated, modular, dynamic, policy-driven process. And to arrive at the new way, I first had to kind of understand the old way, which was static, monolithic policy templates, manual selection and assembly, ad hoc generation with lots of opportunity for errors along the way, and very limited auditability and security control. So with the Atlas Comply solution, I envision a new way in which a modular data-driven policy structure that leverages a relational hierarchy can use dynamic logic to select, correct, and insert information based on user data, which is orchestrated through a workflow with strict validation and streamlined assembly, so that ultimately you have an immutable record with role-based security for enhanced compliance that is very strict in terms of how that policy is created. With the Atlas product, you're able to track the discovery questions and the values that actually generated the clauses and the sections. And then you can automatically inject tokens into the policy. So information such as your DOT mode, number of employees, operating locations, policy preferences are stored securely and then automatically embedded within the policy on demand as needed. So all in all, Atlas Comply is designed to revolutionize policy creation through automation, dynamic assembly, and robust security. With that being said, I'm very excited to provide a demonstration of the feature in the very near future. I'll be doing that tomorrow. In the meantime, if you enjoyed this topic or presentation, I'd be happy to connect with you. Thank you very much, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.